welcome everybody to another episode of the Fringe podcast presented by Imperial Golf. I'm JT. I get to play host tonight because Duke is out of town. Brandon's also gone, so we've got a special guest. I know, they just don't want to work.
Brandon's sick. But
as always, John by my side here. We got a special guest speaker tonight in Kyle Bauer. And then the real reason the real reason we're meeting tonight is newly appointed GM of Shoal Creek Golf Course. Chris Buescher is joining us.
Wow.
Thank you for taking time.
What an intro.
To spend a little
Quite an intro. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
You bet.
And I think I know I can speak for John in this, and just the turnaround since you guys have taken over Orion Golf. We're speaking about, those who don't know, took over last February?
Yeah, March of 23, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Redid the bunkers this last winter. We've been playing out there quite a bit this year thanks to the relationship we've created with you, which just thank you for that, first of all.
Yeah, of course.
It's been awesome for us, but just it's kind of really, you guys have buffed that thing to a clean shine. It looks fantastic.
Well, we appreciate
What's that process been like just from a management standpoint for you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we were handed a pretty awesome product, so let's not mistake that. But, Shoal has been, I think, on my radar, on our radar for a long time. It's a great public track here in Kansas City. So we were excited to get up there and I think really just kind of do what we always do as a company with Orion, and kind of what I've done at every golf course I've been in my career. And it's pretty much just come in, try to be efficient, and basically just treat people right. On the other side of it, Orion does a fantastic job with our superintendents, and we just know how to make a golf course look better with, relatively modest budgets. And Frank Conrick is our director of agronomy for both Shoal Creek and Hodge Park. Okay. And Frank has just done a phenomenal job stepping in there, and it's been awesome.
Frank.
So
appreciate you.
Yeah. And and kudos to the city of Kansas City, who owns the golf course, for giving us some funds to fix some things. As you guys know, we did a big, just under $1 million bunker renovation this last winter. Wow. We started it kind of end of October, and had a pretty awesome winter weather-wise. Yeah. So we were able to get, other than January, we kind of shut down in January, but other than that, we wrapped everything up kind of into March, and that's been huge.
I don't think people realize the work and the money that goes into a bunker renovation like that.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like, most people think you're just digging out sand and putting in new sand, but it's a restructuring, right?
It is.
Like drainage and everything.
It is totally restructuring. And then of course there's some technology that's kind of come along in recent years with that. Billy Bunker, and most golfers have heard that term, Billy Bunker. This is the Billy Bunker 2 system, an updated version. I really can't even tell you a whole lot about what's different, 1 and 2, but 2.0. Basically they dig everything out, remove everything, drainage first. So redo, check all the drainage. Obviously there were some things that we had some history where we knew there were some issues, so we addressed those issues. And then basically you go through with pea gravel, several inches of that, and then they basically put a polymer product down. It's actually sprayed on. It dries, and that polymer is basically porous, so the water will seep through it essentially, and then
the sand to kind of like stick to it better.
Correct. And so then the last step, of course, you put the sand. Luckily, Casey Moe was gracious enough to foot the bill for white sand, which is not cheap. All that sand came out of Arkansas, and very, very expensive for every truckload. And then that white sand basically just it helps stick to the polymer. Yeah. And the idea is when we do get those heavier rains, it just doesn't wash out as easily. Right. Yeah. It saves us man hours in terms of our maintenance crew, and it just makes it a better playable experience.
Plays way better. Played it not long after, like a day after we got some pretty serious rain earlier in the summer. And I purposely was like looking through the bunkers because having been a part of maintenance crews and worked at other golf courses, working in Florida, for example, you get washout daily during the summer.
Yes.
It's just massive thunderstorms rolling through. And if you don't have the manpower, your bunkers look horrendous. They wash out. You can't keep them up the faces and stuff. And it was pretty impressive after the rain we'd had. It was like a good inch or so over 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was like a bit at the top edges of some bunkers, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, I think, when we do stuff like that on the golf course, the goal is if we can, most of the time when we get rain, it's half inch to an inch max.
Yeah.
We try to build things to be able to withstand that. Every once in a while, we're going to have those crazy 4-inch, 5-inch rains, and you're going to see a little bit more wear and tear. But how frequently do those happen? It's not that often. So it's like anything. You go through and
Golfers are still going to complain.
Of course.
Well, yeah.
Of course,
It's never the golfer. It's always the course or the club.
Always.
Or the club.
Yes.
I've been, as you guys as golf instructors,
Or
I've been
the
trying
coach.
to stop. That's a whole nother episode.
I should have prefaced, Kyle
Yeah.
works with John, so
yeah.
maybe some.
He's playing pretty good.
I try to work with John.
tried to
John,
work with John.
I work. He works with me.
That's actually more accurate.
That's fair.
I put up with him.
Put up with Kyle.
Yeah.
I messed that up. Anyway, yeah. So, but the bunkers, it's the Billy bunker, but it's the 2.0. That's I don't know. I'm
right.
done. Sorry.
The 2.0. I love
already.
that. I
So
love
I'm
that.
curious, just general interest on my end, is there more renovations or stuff you guys have in store for that property or Hodge Park, for example?
Yeah, I think for us, I think honestly the city's been pretty generous with money, so I think we're good for a while. The other part of that big kind of renovation, if you will, that I think we have to mention is that there's been some turf issue history at Shoal Creek. Some winter kill got it several years back. There was kind of a sod shortage at the time, so we had to go with a different strain of zoysia, which of course is our fairway grass that we use here, and it didn't really do very well. So we had to go. They had to go again a second round with it, and there was some pretty weak spots in the fairways. And again, we were able to go through, kind of get some of that stuff replaced. And then Frank, again, just kind of a different approach with some of his treatments to get that turf to come along. And I can tell you, man, what a big difference from 2023 to 2024 in the fairways as well. So I think for us, it's kind of small stuff around the clubhouse that we kind of work on every year. We kind of did some remodeling in the pro shop last year. We'll kind of move on to some of our food and beverage areas this year. The stuff that we can kind of handle within our operating budget.
Yeah.
Hodge Park, I think, is definitely a focal point. Lots of irrigation repairs going on there. That's something that's kind of in the works. And I think you mentioned earlier, the tee boxes were looking better. That's a result of some of that stuff. So, hey, these older golf courses, I used to work at one Minor Park. I worked at another one, Swope. Some of these city courses have just got some age, and it takes, I'm sure you guys know, it takes a tremendous amount of money to replace that that element of the course. So
And
it's a work in progress.
Still go wrong, even if you have people that know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Because I grew up working course maintenance seasonally, just in between school years at a place called Glenn's Creek.
Love that place.
And it's in Long Grove, Iowa. So
Okay.
It's
Okay.
like,
Dreams place.
It kind of is, yeah. It's a bit of a gem. It's a public course. It technically you could call it a muni, but it's in a county park, and so their budget's actually pretty decent there. So they're able to keep it really nice. And we went to pretty crazy lengths to overseed and tine and aerify the entire golf course. When I was there, we were aerifying through the rough. The rough, the fairways, everything, and we would aerify the entire course.
What kind of grass primarily up there? Was it bent fairways?
So no, that's a good question because it's
Typically
like a low cut rye.
cool season
It's a
grass
cool
is
season
what we
grass.
refer to it as. Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
weird,
but-
that line of delineation we have here
Yeah.
in Kansas City where you get the hot enough weather for warmer grasses.
It's really odd. We're right in the middle. You go up
Yeah.
to Iowa, and that's like where it stops.
Yeah.
And then just down south, you
You
kind of
get
get
more bent.
Oklahoma, and then it's Bermuda
All the way
south of there. So
Right.
we're in a really narrow window
It is.
for sure.
And
There
bent
a name
is-
for it, I can't remember. But
Yeah, bent's a treat for. At least a lot of better
Yeah.
players. Like a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people like the Zoysia because it
It's-
props more.
I think I've always thought Zoysia is a more playable turf for the average golfer.
Yes,
By far.
Agreed.
Oh, totally.
And also more economical for most Midwestern golf courses. I think it's,
Yeah.
it just doesn't require as much water. Bent is beautiful, but
Yeah.
it costs a ton of money to water.
It's really
bent.
invasive too.
It is.
So
Lots
it
of
likes
disease.
to take over
Yeah.
completely.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Well, zoysia is almost a weed in the way it's resilient
it is.
and grows like crazy. Because that's my one complaint about it, having grown up on bent grass. Not to go turf nerd, but I'm just like, I like to compress it. Anytime we're up in Iowa, I'm just like, oh, this is so satisfying.
Yeah.
To compress the golf ball.
If you're playing bent.
And
yeah.
if you're playing like a Stone Canyon around here, or a few courses that do have bent grass, that it's not quite as satisfying.
Absolutely.
Ball striker.
Well, and I've always been a little bit more on the shallower side than steeper. So I will tell you, I've played a lot of golf on bent grass fairways over the years through college and professional, and played some okay rounds, but I typically don't strike it as well on bent. So I'm always like,
I learned really early in my career as a coach not to do playing lessons on bent grass.
Yeah.
And I like to dig holes. So
You like to dig?
Tight lies.
Some caution tape after you hit a
Absolutely.
shot.
Yeah, it looks like I'm changing a sprinkler head after I take a divot.
I'm just fixing a divot.
I'll never forget, dude. I got a picture of you when we went to Firekeeper the first time years ago, and you're hitting a wedge, and it's just this massive beaver tail. One of our students commented like, "Did you hit that fat?" And John's like, "Nope,
No.
it clean."
Yeah.
Itch. Kind of 2 hands to replace the divot.
Yeah.
Right.
I got a couple of those on bent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I like playing bent too because it's just even on miss hits, like I'm taking a divot because if I don't hit this well, it's going to look cool.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a trench.
Yeah.
It's long irons on bent that I think really get
yeah.
me. It's like I can handle 6 iron down, but anything above 6 iron is where I start going, I'm expecting to hit it thin.
I'll just hit a stinger with a driving iron and hit down on that sun gun.
I have about a 28-yard variance with any given long iron, so I feel you on that one.
There you go.
You can either peer it or I should have hit a 6 iron.
Right, exactly. Amen.
Yeah, but go ahead. I was just going to say the course condition stuff, like I was thinking of one season at Glens Creek where we had a grub problem. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get that under control, that will just wreck a golf course for an entire season, if not 2. And they had I was young, I didn't really know what that was. It's grubs. What's the big deal? And there were 50-yard expanses in the fairway where you could just pull the sod up because the grubs had eaten all the roots away.
Oh,
and it's
it's the real deal. I've had it in my own yard here in Parkville, and
it's insane.
Yes, grubs are nasty. You don't want to deal with them.
Yeah, and you always had like moles and stuff like that. You get a lot of problems with them.
Well,
too,
the grubs attract the moles.
Exactly.
And absolutely. It's not good.
But that's nothing that the super does wrong. That's just once it gets out of control, it's
a superintendent, I think most golfers out there just do not realize how stressful of a job that is. And I'll give all my soups big time props because I always say you're always one bad afternoon away from just a tragedy on a golf course.
Well, it's it's like being a farmer. You're kind of just hoping that Mother Nature gives you good crops, even though you do everything you can.
Exactly.
Actually, you saying that kind of reminds me, it does not every course in town here have an irrigation system?
I don't know the answer to that. I would think probably. Now, you can talk about different levels of irrigation systems.
Like one lines.
Real basic, or like right down the middle of the fairway. We call them single line irrigation systems that typically don't touch the rough.
Yeah.
Very common to have golf courses that don't have rough irrigation. Hodge Park, Minor Park. I'm sure a list of others in town that don't have that. More modern golf courses, typically they installed more complex systems that will have stuff that, and of course that kind of stuff, it impacts the kind of cart rules that we have throughout the heat and the summer months and things like that. And so
I'm just curious because I'm a Pacific Northwest native, and so drought is not a term I hear a lot. In Portland.
I mean, do those courses, are there several that don't have any kind of irrigation?
No, I mean, even dating back to a course that I started my golfing career on, we had kind of like you're talking, just single line right through it, but it was quick couplers. It was so old. So, I mean, you're going out every night and setting lines of, four-wheeler.
The little tractor?
Oh, it's from the 50s.
Yeah.
Sincerely. So, that was my first introduction into golf course, stuff, which it's kind of, nostalgic when I go home, but I'm just like, my word, I would not want to have to do that again. But no, what I often hear thrown around is just, we're in a drought or we're in a dry season. I'm like, turn on your sprinklers. It doesn't seem like complicated, but unless you're east of the mountains in the Northwest, you don't get dry weather.
Right.
You're not really having to deal with irrigation. So I guess maybe I don't know the answer to that either. I don't know how many courses on the west side lack irrigation.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Some of it's what your water source is too, though.
Well, that's, yeah.
100%.
Like if you don't have your own local source and you're pulling city
So
water, that gets expensive.
I'll tell you how Shoal and Hodge work.
I was gonna say, didn't you guys put a pump station in?
We did. So Hodge Park's always operated off of a pump station. They've got that pretty large pond on their property. Several years ago, they actually put a pump in to get some of that water over to Shoal Creek rather. So we can pump over there. However,
Hole 16.
Last year in 2023, I think we hit early June before that lake level got too low, and then we have to switch over to city water. This year we were able to make it all the way into August before we had to switch over to city water. So we had a pretty good first half of the summer, and of course, as we all know, we need rain badly now. So
It was a good year for growing.
yeah, and I always say about sprinkler systems, I think whether it's on a golf course or it's at your house, they're designed to kind of supplement Mother Nature. They can't do the whole job. They're just not designed to do that.
Unless you're willing to pay an arm and a leg.
Yeah, you got to pay a lot of money to do that, right?
Break them
Yeah.
golf course.
Yeah.
They're tight budgets anyway. Well, so I'm curious, Chris, what kind of inspired you to get into the role you're in now?
Yeah, I think I knew, I think kind of through college and just being around a golf course when I was younger and getting real serious about the game, I think, early on, I kind of realized, man, I just want to be around the game. I want to do stuff. And I think, I was like all of us at some point, man, I'd love to be on the PGA Tour, but reality kind of sets in fairly quickly. Never thought about that? Yeah. So, so not really a viable
I'd love
option.
to teach average golfers.
Right. So
Then why are you coaching me?
You're better than average.
I'm below
You're
average.
a nice change of pace.
Well, thank you.
I worked at some golf courses kind of when I was younger, and then of course in college I started working at one, and I realized really quickly, okay, I get to be around the game, and I realized I really enjoy working around people, and so to me it was just kind of a natural fit. I got a marketing degree in college, which I felt was pretty versatile, and I just literally right out of school just kind of jumped into it, and I started out at a kind of a resort facility that was kind of semi-private, so that was kind of my first real taste of it. I liked it. I think you got a little taste of the private world, but it's mostly just public. And I just realized, hey, I think this is a good fit for me, and got out of it for a little while. And when I first moved up here to Kansas City and kind of had decided, we wanted to have a family, and then did something completely different for 2 years, and then all of a sudden an opportunity fell in my lap with Orion, and the rest is kind of history. So jumped into them, and it was just kind of it's kind of a natural fit to jump right back into the game.
To Shoal, you were at Swope.
Correct. Yeah. So, we just came from Swope Memorial, which is also with Orion, and then at Minor Park prior to that. So,
how many courses in our Orion?
We have 9 properties in Kansas City. So we've got the 5 Kansas City, Missouri owned golf courses, plus Adams Point, Winterstone, Excelsior Springs, and Sycamore Ridge. And then we're in a couple other markets. We've got a 36-hole property in Dallas. We're getting ready to take over the Lubbock, Texas public golf courses. And then we're in the Chicago market as well. We've got a property up there, I think, kind of looking to potentially expand up there.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys are kind of
Expanding, I think, at a very reasonably slow rate, not trying to get too big too fast or anything like that. So
Strategically, that's good.
Well, then you can give proper attention to your properties.
Correct.
That way.
Correct. I can't. I mean, Matt and Shane, our owners, who they're like dads to me. I mean, they're just. I always say that's probably the biggest reason I'm still in the golf business is because of them. They're just great people to work for.
Yeah, I mean that'll inspire you. I always say, the longevity of a job often is who you're working with and for.
Absolutely.
And so,
for sure.
That's either going to extend or shorten it one way or another.
Yeah,
Couldn't agree more.
So anyway, on to our next segment before our fight breaks out here.
Do we have liquor here? Or is it just beer?
Not at all, just fresh out.
Well, so you're from Missouri originally?
Washington, Missouri, which is just west of St. Louis. So St. Louis area is what I usually tell people around here, and I usually get hissed at, how
Big
Kansas
fan.
City, St. Louis thing here.
Versus Royals.
Big time Cardinals fan.
Go Cardinals.
Another one
Yeah,
here, so.
absolutely. So, Iowa, because Iowa's kind of in no
We
man's
have
land for
nothing.
professional sports, right?
So we scream
no
at,
offense.
we
What about
scream
the
at our
Hawkeyes?
Hawkeyes for part of the season, and then once that's over, we're
So
like,
you're
I
either
don't know
like
what to do.
it's either Cardinals, Cubs for baseball,
Yeah.
and then it's
My
either
brother's a
like
Cubs fan.
Vikings or Chiefs for football. Is that about right?
Packers. I mean,
Packers,
but
I guess,
all
yeah.
my family's from Wisconsin. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Packers, and then sadists that want to root for the Bears for some weird reason.
There you go.
Well, yeah.
They're just always awful.
Yeah.
Somehow.
We have a couple Bears
Da
fans in
Bears.
our family.
I've met them.
Yeah.
Da Bears.
Namely Walter Payton's son. He's married into our family. So
Really?
we have like a couple of random Bears fans, but he's surrounded by Packers fans. So.
Okay.
So every wedding and special event is him bringing up Walter, and we're like, yeah, he's cool, but Packers fans, dude, like you're surrounded by.
Yeah, you can't hate sweetness.
Yeah, no.
That's greatest ever.
Yeah, but you're right. We just kind of pick because we're like,
Well,
it's
kind of
like
a good
what's
place to
around
be in,
us,
really.
you know?
So no pressure, right? You just
Yeah, I
kinda-
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to, growing up in Portland, we had the Seahawks a few hours north, but when I was a kid especially, they were awful.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, it was, the Cowboys were dominant, the Niners were dominant, you had all these other teams. So it was, that it's such a weird change of pace growing up, raising my kids in an NFL town.
Yeah.
Especially one that's having so much success, and it's just, which is actually kind of cool. Although that's starting to wear off now that I've lived here for so long, because I'm a
No, it's
Broncos
not.
fan.
You're a Denver fan, so yeah, I'm sure it's
Yeah,
getting
I'm
old,
like, all right,
right?
that was fun. Now this is getting old.
And my wife's a Raiders fan, so we're doing well in Kansas City.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of what I tell
Talk
people.
about picking the exact things to not root for in Kansas City.
I'm a hardcore Royals fan. I just,
She's a Royals fan too,
That's one.
but
of
she
the-
is a Braves fan
I
first.
can't adopt the football team. I can adopt everything else.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
But,
I get it.
I don't know if I'm blaming myself or.
Do you want me to
what,
pull up the
but
chat log of where that's a lie?
I'm sorry.
Nothing.
Hey, his kids are Chiefs fans.
I mean, I think
you
even
know.
in St. Louis, like when I was like in, grade school and like junior high, like I was a Chiefs fan for sure. I had family up here, and then the Rams came.
Oh, okay.
And that was, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty exciting.
Sure.
And so I never stopped liking the Chiefs, but when
The greatest show on turf.
greatest show on turf, we moved, and my wife was gracious enough to kind of let me build a new man cave and getting some cool autographed jerseys. And I'm not gonna lie, I got a Warner and a Marshall Faulk jersey,
Oh,
and they got a little special place on my wall. I mean, it was like a big part of it.
You gotta
but-
hang those up. Don't care what kind of fan you are.
Absolutely, it's good stuff. But Chiefs
Sacking
were always
groceries to
still
throwing touchdowns.
We're always still big. So
Well, and that's the funny dynamic I kind of realize now, looking back on my childhood, was my dad and his brothers all big football fans. Pre-1976, which they're old enough, sorry guys to date you, the Seahawks weren't around. So they all kind of found their own teams. And then the Seahawks became a thing. So the dynamic I grew up with was you had your own team, but you supported the Seahawks because they were cute.
they're local, right? Yeah.
And whatever. And that kind of continued. So growing up, it was, you don't have to be a Cowboys fan, because that's what my dad has been his whole life. And when I looked around, it was like, okay, the Broncos are competitive. John Elway's really cool.
I mean,
And I didn't-
that's
Any
that's
Niners
arguable.
fans I met they were irritating, kind of like KU fans around here, I've noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't get to pick sides there, but Mizzou fans seem to be far more tolerable. I don't know.
I
what it
couldn't
is.
agree more.
So, sorry, KU fans.
Well, they're also getting pretty good again, Mizzou.
Well, it's actually kind of neat
In
just
football.
to see the rise in competitiveness with all the sports programs almost
Yeah.
seemingly at one time. It's like the Chiefs have elevated the level of everybody almost somehow, because it all seems to be
Yeah.
rising at one time. Even the women's soccer team is.
I'm going to go back even further. It was KC Sporting that started it.
what,
When they
2012,
got started,
13 and-
when they got started,
yeah.
and then the Royals in
Royals
14 and
won.
15,
Yeah.
Yep.
and then with that horrible 11th pick that we had with Mahomes, and then here we are.
Right.
Hey, at first they were wondering why we
would've
were
thought,
paying
right?
all that money.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see. I mean, because me being born and raised here, right? Like it's been cool to see because I've been through the the DeBerg era and Montana and the whole era of the Chiefs and the Broncos dominating us and the big Raiders Chiefs rivalry to what the Chiefs are now. I mean, when St. Louis is in its run, I mean, that was really cool to see because it was a flyover state. It was a Missouri team.
Local-ish. English.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Missouri team. It's like, oh my gosh, they are. It
was cool.
We got some cool things going on. You know,
Fun to watch too.
oh, absolutely.
There was a stretch, like I remember being from St. Louis, there was like a Sports Illustrated cover that went out, and it was like, in that little stretch, the Cardinals had won the World Series, the Rams were
2011
viable,
was the
and
last
then
time.
like the Blues were like flirting with the Stanley Cup, and they were like,
Play
it
Gloria.
said like number one sports town in America type thing, and it had, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's how it felt, you know. And
Sure.
I think we're kind of like, now we're experiencing that here. So I've gotten to experience that in 2 cities I've lived in.
Yeah.
It's just kind of neat.
You're not
Cardinals
allowed-
fans
you're
are
not-
starting to get
so-
desperate again, though.
Right.
So what you're saying
13
is,
years.
is you're not allowed to move from Kansas City. We need to keep being successful. 'Cause
I
if
love
you
it.
Move,
Yeah, I don't have any
and
plans
all
on
these
leaving.
sports fall down. I'll track you down, bud.
Hey, you got it, man.
I'm going to sit you down and have a conversation.
I'll make it easy on you.
I'll just say this: you guys drafted Mahomes shortly after I moved here, so not that there's any connection there, but
There you go.
So anyway, Chris, if you're not
yeah, screw you. Anyway, moving on.
yeah, next. But I don't know. It's been fun to see and to be a part of, and it's kind of changed the culture in Kansas City because I can see it from. I mean, it's not necessarily sports related, but you go to downtown. I think 15 years ago in downtown where the Sprint Center and Power and Light and all that, or excuse me, T-Mobile Arena and Power and Light and all that is. I mean, it was just you can look at old pictures and it was just barren,
Yeah.
dirty, nasty, and then
Yeah.
that stuff came in and Kansas City's kind of turned around and it's fun.
Well, so you being from St. Louis and you being a local guy, I want your guys' thoughts then on the baseball stadium and whether or not to move
Oh,
it
the
downtown
move, yeah.
and stuff like that. Because I'm a transplant, so to me,
Kaufman's cool, too.
it's one of my favorite I've only been to 5, I think, baseball stadiums,
Yeah.
including like Fenway and stuff. I love where that park's located, but if you're talking dollars and cents, I get the incentive to wanting a downtown ballpark.
Well, I'll start by saying, being a Cardinals fan, if you haven't been to, this is actually Busch 3.
I already agree.
But if you have not been to Busch Stadium, it's phenomenal.
It's Busch
It is.
3?
It's Busch 3. There was actually I just took my kids down there this spring and we did the tour, and the guy kind of clarified that they considered where I think like there was like a small period of time like when the Browns were there was like that was actually like Busch 1, and then the last one was Busch 2, and then this is Busch 3. So
Okay, I didn't-
little Cardinals history there,
We
but
just went
Busch
there
2
this
looked
summer.
more like
I
a
got to
Coliseum.
experience it for
It
the
did.
first time,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was pretty neat.
well, I mean, the setup, so
big
it's
one.
downtown. You've got, of course, the stuff like next to it, which is like, what do they call it? I don't even know, Ballpark Village. Is that
Yeah,
what it's
there's
called?
Ballpark Village.
Yeah,
it's Ballpark
it's
Village.
there. So
It's so cool. Like, I actually had not been to a game in several years, so I hadn't seen all that when we went.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is awesome. So with that being
Yeah.
said, I get that Kansas City wants that.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Because
at
it's
the same-
just the stadium. Like Kaufman's cool, but they don't have that. They don't have that atmosphere surrounding it, which is part of what
definitely
you're talking
not. I mean,
about.
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
It just it's just in the middle of a big parking lot right
I
off
took these
I-70.
kids there.
Right, yeah.
This year. Well, we all went to St. Louis, and I took them to a Cardinals game.
I mean, those seats were great.
They were
Right in
great.
the
They were
sun,
hot.
no wind. It was like a 1.5 degrees.
Humid as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the heat.
The one
let
thing
me
I didn't
tell
think
ya.
about, because I was like, you know what, I'm going to get good seats since these guys never been here. And
Right.
and it was like
They were good seats.
We were like, it was like
half
97
inning.
in the seats, I think, 97.
Well, I will say, I mean, it's when it's that hot.
we were
it's
down
hot.
by the dugout. So.
But it is kind of like I call it like an open air stadium, like with the outfield cut out.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the games I've been to, there is some air movement, and I think that's just kind of one of the cool things. It's awesome
Not
how the
that-
city.
We found it. We found
You didn't
the pocket.
experience that. Yeah. You found the pocket. There you go.
Yeah.
But
We got that one day, but that was my sense of it because I've grown up in the Northwest, went to a few Mariners games. Say I don't know what they're called now. Safeco and Quest Field was what they were called when I was there. I don't know what they are
I think
anymore.
it still is.
But they're just right next to each other.
Sure.
And then you got the whole downtown plaza, Fenway, obviously, tons of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Although it's so tiny, like it's such a small ballpark. It's almost
Yeah.
claustrophobic feeling.
Wrigley's iconic for that
Yeah,
kind
not-
of similar
not been to
reason
that
too,
one,
though.
But I've
Yeah.
heard those things too. I always like how open Kaufman feels, and I don't know that you could duplicate that downtown.
yeah, probably not. Yeah.
But
No.
I just have always associated just that downtown vibe of like, oh, you're going to go to a ballpark because it's more casual than football. Like you're there
Yeah.
to watch for a few hours and then go, But then with baseball, it just half the people don't even look like they're paying attention to the
Right.
game.
Yeah.
It's like they're just hanging out, having some nachos and a beer.
Cold
and-
dog and a stale beer.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Cold chili.
Cold pork
if you were a
missile.
hot dog, would you eat yourself? Yeah. So, I'd wash it down with a towel, cool bow. Hey, if the moon were made of ribs, would you eat it? But I mean, from a KC standpoint,
Well, you invited
it sounds
him.
nothing like Harry Carey, but it's the greatest Harry Carey impression
That's
ever.
pretty good. Not bad.
Bad, actually.
So
I heard it.
I was just talking about the Will Ferrell thing, like it. Hi, but collect yourself.
Oh gosh, wrong
Focus. All right. Anyway, so from a KC standpoint, KC's always big on nostalgia. Don't change anything, and when players leave, bring them back. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get rid of Kauffman for that reason.
Yep.
Sure.
Even Kauffman, the whole bit. I mean, there's Kauffman Center. I'm a fan of having a downtown stadium.
Yeah.
And the reason why is you kind of you touched on it. I feel like baseball is a little more casual. It's laid back. It's fun. It's a better atmosphere. And I've always, I mean, just when growing up, looking at Fenway and Wrigley and the Yankee Stadium, I feel like a downtown environment is better for baseball. I mean,
just
the Padres are in the middle of, right outside of their downtown.
Like
I mean,
you get the tram that can bring you to the game. I think if you're talking just butts and seats, you're going to see more casual people just like strolling by want to go, but they're not going to make a commitment to drive 20 minutes out of town to see a team that's winning 50 games a year.
Right.
Now this year's a bit of an aberration. They're finally kind of getting back into it, which is always fun.
absolutely.
But that's a rarity, it seems, when you get a team that's salary doesn't allow them to spend what the Yankees and the Dodgers are going to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the downside of baseball, is just everything's so dependent on, well, how much money are the owners going to spend?
Right.
And I'll just add this from a non-Chiefs fan kind of standpoint. You have the face of the league as your like franchise right now, and a stadium that was built in the 70s, and you have the opportunity to kind of elevate your stadium to the level it should be when you have a player of that caliber. That's my viewpoint, is if you're going to build Kauffman downtown, demolish it, make a Chiefs Village, and you're now one of these linchpin franchises. You got a dynasty. You need to capitalize on that, is my thought, and create something that's emblematic of one of the stalwart franchises in the league. That was one of the original. I mean, Lamar Hunt's a legend. When
It's the Lamar Hunt Trophy.
Right. And so to me, I'm like, you need something a bit like Green Bay, another Packers fan over here.
Well, they
And
heavily developed
created the Lombardi
Lambeau.
Village.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that-
Which totally modernized
the
it,
Chiefs
but you still get
historically
the
are kind of the AFC side of that, the AFL side of the NFL, where you need to capitalize on that to me.
And I agree. And, to touch on that, a lot of people, when all that voting was going on here in the last year, a lot of the arguments were like, where are we going to get the money? Where are we going to get the funding? So on and so forth.
Yeah.
They can maintain these stadiums. Well, the Royals don't own Kauffman Stadium. The Chiefs don't own Arrowhead.
No.
It's owned by the county.
It's rent controlled,
Yeah, and it's rented.
for lack of a better
And
phrase.
people don't understand that.
No. Yeah.
So it's,
Plus, everyone else is making $2 billion stadiums look like nothing.
yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
They're just popping up everywhere.
They are.
So
And then the other
it's
argument,
easier in Vegas
In-
in defense of the Raiders.
Oh,
But,
it's Vegas.
yeah, it's Vegas.
Buffalo's doing it too now.
yeah.
And to
But U.S. Bank and all that.
and to touch on that, they talk about, and this isn't a knock, but the current stadium, which I think is fantastic, the first dedicated women's sports stadium, fantastic,
Yeah,
growing the
Really cool.
franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were like, how many billions of dollars did that cost? It didn't cost $1 billion. It was actually relatively inexpensive.
What does it seat? Like 8,000, 10,000?
I can't remember the capacity on it.
Give her, maybe a little bit more, but somewhere between 10 and 15 at the max, I would think.
We have all these smartphones. We could,
I know, right?
but but it was a fantastic addition.
It was.
With that, and now we're getting another live music venue in Parker down there in Riverside that Live Nation's doing.
11,500.
Yeah,
Okay.
so and I think it costs,
Hang on.
for the sake of the thing, it was.
Google machine.
No, it wasn't the $500 million that everybody thinks the
No.
stadium costs. I want to say it was relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's great. I would love it. My family goes a lot. It's
120 million.
it's open.
How much?
I mean, it's
120 million.
Yeah.
It's a different type of stadium for sure.
Absolutely.
But they did it well. They were reasonable with it, and they made it work. And it's exactly what that venue needs.
Venue is really cool.
You're also
Like,
talking about 12,000
Huge.
people versus
Right.
80 or
Right.
100.
Yeah.
And so,
60
which
to
like,
70.
it's not just seats, like the cost scales because of the facilities. Like you have
Well,
to scale
and,
everything.
And we got the,
food,
draft, and everybody wants to get a Super Bowl here. Well, as a football player, Little League, high school, and the Silver Years Summer Pro that I played, man, football's a cold weather sport.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let snow get on them. It's not going to affect fans. If anything, more fans are going to show up, in my
I
opinion.
agree with that, with the exception of the final game of the year. I'm kind of on board with that. I've never really enjoyed the cold weather Super Bowl idea. I like that you've got athletes on both sides of the ball. I want to see those athletes shine, not be neutralized because of elements. For some odd reason, I have a conflict there.
I get what you're saying.
I
Yeah.
like both. I see both sides of it. I get it. Having Minnesota in an open air stadium for years, it was just like, yeah, you got snow weather. Well, now they're in this temperature controlled dome. Indianapolis would have tons of,
not Lambeau.
not Lambeau.
But isn't it even all the other stuff that almost has besides the game, the halftime show, that's the stuff
yeah.
to me
Oh,
that
yeah.
gets so much harder dealing with those winter weather elements,
Which seems to be what more people are more interested in.
Correct.
these days.
Well,
It's not
let's
the
be
football.
honest.
Well,
if it's not your team, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To add to that, like the one dimensional.
I blew my hip out when Usher got on stage.
with.
Twice.
What I was going to say though is
He's still alive.
The one-dimensional thought process from fans is just, well, this is our stadium. From the owner standpoint, it's, I have to fill this 365 days a year, or I have to pay for this 365. How do I, benefit? And so, like I'll use Dallas Stadium. I don't know if you guys have been to a game down there. It's it's a city.
It's a
massive.
must see. I've heard.
Yeah.
It is an amazing stadium, without
And-
question.
and for
One of
those
the
that
coolest
are-
venues I've ever seen.
Oh, it's unreal.
But Jerry's packing that place almost 5 days a week during the summertime
With other stuff, yeah.
with other stuff. And that's what makes these kind of one-dimensional 70s, 80s built stadiums problematic.
Yeah.
Is they're not up to date. You can't host venues. If you do, they're a little awkward. They're not as easy.
Every
I mean, they
minute
have
they sit there
concerts and they-
unused
yeah.
costs money, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
And they do have some
Right.
big concerts and stuff.
They do,
that are
yeah.
ahead. But yeah, it limits you, especially with that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Like for weather.
As a home-based Seahawks fan, we went through this when they demolished the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the fan base was so irate when they wanted to go open air.
Well, nobody likes change.
Correct. Especially back then.
Hey, how do you know that?
And it was an interesting time frame because it wasn't only we're losing our stadium. They're now moving us to the
No
NFC.
comment.
Love you, man.
We're in a completely different division suddenly. All these division rivals from Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos are now no longer Chargers. And we're completely shipped. It was just a weird dynamic. The uniform change, everything was changing in rapid form. And then they spent 2 years playing at the Husky Stadium while they built Quest Field, but they engineered it purposely to be accessible for other venues and events. And they had sound engineers, like you talk about the noise thing that's here at Arrowhead, to make sure that with the open air stadium, you're still going to get volume.
Right.
Because the advantage the Kingdome had was just it echoed because there was no sound dampening. So it was just one of the loudest venues in sports for its time.
Still number 2.
And so, well, they never tested the Kingdome. All the sound testing with the decimal stuff has happened at open air Quest Field.
I understand your defense on this, but Chiefs.
I start twitching. when
Love
I
you.
hear that
Mean it.
shit.
But
Sorry.
Hi, listen here, buddy. But no, I mean, to talk about Jerry's World with Cowboys Stadium, right? Not to get off the. I mean, it's cool that what the Seahawks did with all that. That was a fun another little bit of competitive of who's louder. I mean, love
Dallas
it.
doesn't rival that at all.
No, but to touch base on the Cowboys Stadium. I mean, I've never been inside the stadium. I've seen it. I was down there when the Astros new stadium was getting built.
Okay.
I mean, that is unreal. How big that is. But everything's bigger in Texas, right?
Yeah.
But the times that I was down there was actually during the high school state championships for Texas.
Yeah.
They go hard in the paint down there.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's a big deal.
It's a religion in Texas.
I mean, and it was just
Right.
absolutely packed. I mean, the amount of fans leaving a stadium, coming into a stadium, and going over to the Texas Live where I was hanging out at. I mean, just it's unreal.
Our high school stadiums are unreal.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah, Allen,
Movies
Texas.
made about it. Yeah.
Well, they don't split up the district as much as they do here.
Yeah.
yeah. Side note: should we do a business trip to Lubbock and maybe catch a Friday night game?
I think we
and
could
go-
probably do that. Yeah. Give us a little bit of time to get things going. But,
So what are you doing next
yeah.
week?
So that might be jumping the gun a little bit, but that's all right.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just like growing up reading the book Friday Night Lights. Yes, John, I can read on tape, but reading the book Friday Night Lights and watching the movie, Permian High School, watching, Booby Miles and all that stuff. Like that kind of got me fired up for high school stuff, and I would love to go down there and witness a high school game.
Fun little fact, Friday Night Lights, so Lucas Black. You guys know who Lucas Black is, the quarterback?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious.
Oh, you're talking
7 Days in Utopia.
So he does a movie. It's one of them that I really wasn't real familiar with, but it's one of the movies he did with Billy Bob Thornton, and they filmed it in some odd, I can't remember the name of the town, in Missouri,
Okay.
and he loved it, and so it was not very far from Columbia. So Lucas moved to Columbia, and this was probably I was down at the lake, so this was probably in the, we'll say like the 05 to 010 range, somewhere
He's a
in
stick
there.
too, isn't he?
So one day we used to have, we used to basically do like a lot of, like the lake's kind of isolated down there. So we did a lot of like local pro tournaments down there just with the courses. There's like 14 courses at the lake. So we did that a lot. We're at an event one day and I'm like, walk up to the clubhouse and I set my stuff down and I'm like, God, that looks like the quarterback from Friday Night Lights. It was the quarterback from Friday Night Lights.
That's
Long
cool.
story short, this guy, we ended up letting him play in a lot of our pro events up there. I got to be on like a first name basis with him. He was like one of the nicest dudes ever. So, and he is
That's
a
awesome.
stick. He was probably at that time playing to like a 1 or 2 handicap.
Good for him.
Like the most down to earth celebrity you'll ever meet.
about it.
But yeah,
He's
it's
also
cool.
kind of a anti-Hollywood guy.
Yeah, right now he's like, I follow him on YouTube. He's like really into fishing right now. Like all he does is fish. So sorry, got a little off track.
No,
subject
No.
there,
So
but yeah.
what- favorite
to
movie, man.
caveat to that, one of my coworkers, he works down in Jeff City, and there's a charity tournament, and I remember he said but it's like every year, or the last time he played in it, he was down there, and I think it was about around the same time, and he said the same thing.
So down
Nicest
to
guy
earth.
in the world, and he was
Yeah.
asking him like, "Hey, do you think you can pull a shot off?" He said, "Look here, son, just sit back and watch this." And I guess just just curled it around something
Yeah.
and dropped it to like 5 feet.
He
It
can
was-
play. He shot
Meaning
you.
his Southern boy accent's not fake.
He
No,
sounds
that's
exactly
him.
like he sounds in every movie he's
Yeah.
ever been in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I played with him in one of
That's
the
cool.
events. Like I was a little starstruck at first, but good dude. And then we talked, and I remember at the end of it, I was like, said something really stupid. I'm like, hey, would you mind signing some, DVD covers or something like that for me? And he's like, oh yeah, and I'm like, that was dumb. Why'd you say that? and so, we have an event at my course, like maybe a couple weeks later, and he was playing in the field, and I brought him. I had him with me ready for him to sign, and I'm like, oh, he's not going to sign. I'm like, I'm not going to ask him again. I'm an idiot, kind of a deal. And we're out there. I'm behind, I'm playing in the event, and I'm running the event, so it's like last minute. I'm back there behind the counter. We're getting ready to do announcements. He's still not here. All of a sudden, I walked out, and then I see Lucas running around the clubhouse with his clubs, throw them on a cart. I turned around, went back into the pro shop for something, not the DVDs. And all of a sudden, Lucas comes running in. And he goes, hey, he's like, I'm not going to do a Lucas Black impression. He's like, hey, Chris. He's like, you got those DVDs? I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's
This guy's awesome. He comes in and signs everything. He's like, 5 minutes late for the golf tournament at this point. And such a cool dude.
That's awesome.
So
Speaking of the celebrity thing, so in my years of being younger, when I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, I bounced down at Power and Light at PBR.
Yep.
And got to
You're a
meet,
bouncer.
Just like I watch Roadhouse
They have a
every
size
night, buddy.
requirement.
Did you think about bouncing?
Hold on, there's too many questions when medicine's wearing off. JT,
Size requirement for that job?
thick with 2 C's,
Right there.
2 seats.
a lot of mass.
All right.
And John, your question?
Oh, no.
It doesn't
just
matter.
making a Ron White reference. That's fine. You just think about bouncing?
It took all of us,
Yeah.
and we watched Roadhouse a lot.
Oh, yeah.
The old one, not the new one.
not the new one.
Oh.
No bueno there.
Yeah. So got to meet a lot of the
Never seen it.
Yeah, same.
a lot of the sports celebrities, Hosmer and Lorenzo Kane would come in every once in a while, and Perez and Moose and all those guys.
You were down there when the Royals were like kicking
Well,
off.
this was before.
Oh, before they were getting. Okay.
I can't confirm or deny that those guys were in there about midnight 30, and they weren't 21.
They were tired.
Allegedly.
Sure, it's fine.
Yeah. They're just looking for a quick snack.
Statute of limitation.
Yeah.
You weren't doing your job, bouncer.
I didn't work the door. You want my brother's number? You can call him. But anyway, so like getting to know those guys. Well, I mean, the one guy that's popular right now is Travis Kelsey.
Sure.
Yeah.
He would come in, and I don't know if anybody's watched their podcast at all, but the dude was always genuine when he walked in. Mm-hmm. I mean, super nice and polite, and it's kind of cool to see. I mean, this was when he was just getting drafted and coming into Kansas City, and still nobody really knew who he was.
In his first few years, like he was such a hothead on the football field. I didn't know him, obviously. Didn't live here at the time, but
I look at that.
I was just like, what is with this kid?
Sure, but
And
in
off
person,
the field.
he was the polar opposite in person.
Yeah. The whole dating show.
Yeah.
I mean, you get paid to do something. If somebody,
right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jolie, but if you got paid to do a dating show, let's be honest.
No,
here.
I would not.
I would be the stunt double.
Like, we're related.
Kind of, not even a little. But yeah, I mean, so to touch base with with Luke, I mean, it's always entertaining to see that, and I've had my fair share of you sign something and I'm like an idiot, but my favorite thing that I got to do was when I would meet these guys would come in, is I'd be like, where do I know you from? And just
It just drives them nuts. Yeah, sure.
And it was just the jab, but it was like
You on TV?
yeah, like what?
I've seen you before.
Total
Yeah.
rile.
Did you were you at the Chipotle that I was just at? But
McDonald's drive-through?
But the funniest one is I am obviously not a speed demon. So there's one night Dante Hull's there, and it's he's in town for a Chiefs game, and I went up to him and I'm like, hey, if you race backwards, you think you can beat me a foot race? And he kind of looks at me, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a 2-second head start down there to that elevator, and I'm gonna smoke you. And he looks at me, and I'm like, I'm just kidding, dude. I'm already out of breath thinking about this. But just the look on his face of like,
He was game.
he was gonna take my money.
Talk about nightmares as a Broncos fan. That dude, oh my word.
Yeah.
That guy, he was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Don't make him like that. All right, so back to the golf thing, because I know
that
We kind of went on an alternate
tangent.
road there.
See,
didn't
what
we?
had happened was, so when word started getting spread about Orion taking over, all the city courses, and ironically, some of my favorite courses were Orion properties. Sycamore is one of my favorite courses to go down and play.
Sure.
I always get my tail kicked in by it, but I love it. Adams Point, love playing that one. Is there a possibility of doing like an Orion Pass where you like a punch card thing? 'Cause I know Adams Point and Winterstone used to do a trade off of something. I think they called it a Stone Pass.
We kick some of that stuff around. We've talked a little bit about that. Sometimes some of the complications with that are Orion doesn't own golf courses. We manage them. So we're dealing with different ownership groups. So sometimes there can be some cross issues there.
About that.
Yeah, it's okay. And it's not that, everybody's great. It's just different. Obviously KCMO is owned by a municipality. Our other properties, Excelsior Springs is owned by the city up there. The other, Adams Point's owned by Blue Springs, and then the other properties are privately owned. So that's always just a layer of things we have to think about. An owner may come to us and like, well, hey, why am I discounting my golf, for, what am I getting out of it? That type of a thing. So, but
sense,
but it's still talked about a little bit. And we've got, we've also, Orion's we have been sitting on this for quite a while, but we actually own the website Play Golf KC. So that's kind of a new thing that we're kind of getting out there a little bit. And basically when you go to that website, you're going to be able to access all the Orion properties. So we're currently kind of talking about some promos that we can kind of wrap into that. So would kind of be along those same lines as an Orion card, something like that. So
yeah, because a lot of the guys that I've play golf with, we tend to like to bounce around a little bit, obviously, like anybody else.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that got talked about was, man, it'd be awesome if they did, point system, buy 10 rounds, you get, whatever.
Golf business has changed a lot. I mean, I think about in the early days, I've been fortunate. I've always pretty much been at successful properties. I've just been fortunate. The golf courses have been in good shape. We've had good sound ownership and, things have just been good. But, from the early 2000s to where we are now, I mean, you're always trying to think about what's that promo we can do? What's that magic marketing type thing? And of course, in golf, a lot of times it gets to the D word, discount, right? Yeah. And that was just, we're always like trying to figure out, well, how do we want to do this? And well, I got to tell you now in the golf market, the way that it is, discounting is not something that anybody right now is in a hurry to do. It just doesn't make sense. So,
because you're busy enough.
Demand is through the roof. Swope Memorial is set to close January 1st for an 18-month renovation. So we're going to have to, we as a city, we're going to have to figure out, okay, there's another 40,000 rounds of golf that we're going to have to absorb.
Yeah. You saw the whole time, 40,000 rounds of golf a year at Swope?
Yeah. So, to be honest with you, I think
we did that.
Most of us are at that number. That's kind of a pretty common number now. So OP is going to take it beyond that. Minors probably flirting closer to 45 this year. Shoal, we're going to probably come in that 38 range. At least that's kind of what we're projecting. So,
makes its conditions even.
Shoal's a little different. You're paying a little bit more of a premium greens fee. So we're not cramming people like sardines out there onto the golf course. So just, a little bit different there. So
maybe a free bucket of range balls when you, but
Yeah. I don't think so. Nice try though. Yeah.
First time on a podcast and I'm trying to get free stuff.
Kyle always trying to get free shit.
Yeah. Free 99. That's the best.
Yeah. I'll give you Lucas's number. Maybe you can score some autographed DVDs or something. So
That would be fantastic.
There you go. But
I want him to paint me a picture like 7 Days in Utopia. But
slice
it. That was an underrated movie.
It was underrated. Agree.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I think, COVID, the impacts that COVID had on golf, I still can't really believe it. And I think you guys see that as well, obviously. And it's just, I think the first couple of years afterwards, it was like we sit down over the winter and we really start doing our forecasting for the next year. And it's like, man, certainly we've got to start seeing a slowdown, right?
Oh yeah.
You're not trying to be negative or pessimistic, but you just expect it. Yep. And we just don't see it, and things just keep moving forward, and that's fantastic.
It's crazy to see the growth.
It's also a little scary because
I think it's very smart in a cautious way to be like not negative, but like you're kind of waiting for it because it felt like a false boom.
Well, yeah,
and a lot of the club companies did see that.
Yes,
like that's what we've heard.
Yeah.
So like from the equipment side, it has kind of.
Well, and I mean, let's be honest, this isn't the first time that's happened.
No.
I mean, we saw that exact same thing happen with a lot of the club companies. I mean, Callaway got in a lot of trouble back in that 06, 07 era. Yeah. And then, remember Harry with the glasses, Harry kind of brought him out of that, their marketing guy. But, so hopefully they kind of learn from that as well. But so far, everything is still, indicating that we're still some growth there, and we're just trying to figure out how to sustain it at this point.
I mean, from a business standpoint, get it while you can.
Yeah.
There's things about golf that I'll never understand, and I can get up on a soapbox on some of this stuff, but golf courses, it's like, I look at things, I'm not trying to be a tour player. Obviously I couldn't do it when I was younger. I definitely can't do it now. Yeah, right. But it's like, I just look at the game from a different perspective, I think, as I get older. And the more years that go by as a golf course operator, I tend to have, opinions that change. And my thing is right now is I want people to have fun. I think that's what grows the game, and I want to make that experience as good as I can. That can include pace of play. That can include just having fun. And I see these trends with newer golf courses. I just don't understand it. It's like they just get harder. They get longer. I can't speak out against that enough.
They're playing off the tour. And
they are,
equipment.
But the thing about that is that you hear about that all the time. It's like, hey, oh yeah, well, so-and-so, this real rich guy, he builds a golf course and he wants to host a tour event. Well, the likelihood of that happening is so incredibly small. Yeah. And there's so many logistics that go into that, location, hotels, parking, and it rarely happens, right? So when you if you think about all your buddies and you think about people that you know and you say, hey, what's your favorite golf course? They're probably going to tell you a golf course that they've played well at. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so.
Yeah,
I think there's some merit to that. I mean, you can all say, hey, I played a tour venue and it was awesome. It kicked my butt. But
yeah, I thought you were going to say it wouldn't necessarily be a tour venue, which that I would definitely agree with.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times it's a secluded place that a lot of people don't know about.
That they probably have played decent golf at.
Or like I took these guys to Burlington. Yeah. That's kind of what that was for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at Spirit Hollow there. I mean,
Spirit Hollow was a really fun track.
But it's not like wildly known, across the nation.
Yeah.
We're in Iowa. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like Iowa, right? Mm-hmm. It's flatter than it's flat. I'm just going to leave it at that.
To be fair, the whole west side is. As you go east, though, it gets more.
I learned that. But when I'm standing on a tee box and it's a 264's carry, and I'm struggling to get around on a golf ball to go 220.
No, you're not.
At that time.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And now you're hitting at 320.
Irrelevant. But it's 308.
Yeah, 308.
310 all day. Downhill with wind. But, I mean, it blew my mind because, we're driving from over here in Kansas City and up there, and I'd never played golf in Iowa, and we get there to this golf course, Spirit Hollow, and it's, insane undulation. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of Kinderhook with some of the undulation. I'm like,
which I still haven't been to somehow. I got
what?
Yeah, I know.
That's another one.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
I've heard about that ever since I've lived here.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of OB, so I don't have fun there. But you guys
really wide fairways though. It's just the fairways are wide, but if you miss the fairway, then you're in trouble.
But when you slice it wider,
I'm really good at that.
Had you by chance ever heard of Spirit Hollow or no?
I actually have. I've not played it.
Yeah.
A long time ago, I knew a girl that kind of grew up in Burlington, and she was the bev cart driver out there. Oh. Always talked about it, but never made it. So.
That's where we played state golf.
Yeah,
that's why
I have heard of it. She always spoke very highly of it, and
it's awesome.
Nice
but
place.
To your point, that's probably what influenced my opinion of the place. I played really good that day.
Yeah.
It also had some similarities to Pacific Northwest golf. There was definitely a few evergreens.
In Iowa.
It was weirdly drizzly halfway through the day, bent grass. It was just kind of where am I right now? It was kind of cool.
Well, and
it was a fun course.
But obviously,
it was the company.
The handicap of the golfer is probably going to make a difference there too. If you're at 23 handicap, your expectations are a little bit lower. You're probably going to shoot a similar score just about anywhere you go. Yeah. A better player, we have egos, right? So if I go out and I throw up a 78 at a golf course, the golf course could be phenomenal, and I hate it. Right?
I'm happy as hell if I post a 78.
That's how that works.
I get your point too,
for sure,
because it depends on the epic nature of the golf course. Years ago, we played TPC Sawgrass. Mm-hmm. Could not give a shit what I shot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
you're just taking the experience in.
Yep. It was just,
just par 17.
Yep, which I did not do.
Right.
Which I did.
Yeah, John did.
Lucky bounce off of a rock.
Years ago, played a place called Gamble Sands in Central Washington to Nothing Town in Brewster. Just a resort course David McClay Kidd has designed the last couple of years. One of the guys that did the first Bandit Dunes courses. I don't remember what I shot. I don't remember many golf shots. I just spent the whole day taking in
the surroundings. Right?
Yeah. Sure. But it's not. It's pretty rare as a better player that I'm not invested in what I'm shooting.
Yeah. So. Maybe if you take resort or destination properties out of that, and you just kind of go more of where do you live? What your closest metro, your area, what's your favorite golf course? Right. It's probably that formula is probably more applicable to that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I'd say prior to this year, to be honest with you, fully candid, having played Shoal probably half a dozen times prior to this year, played it a bit more, got more familiar with it. Shoal will eat my lunch.
It can, yeah.
Like it's got some holes that my eyes don't like. I don't know what it is.
Sure.
There's a sneaky amount of blind tee shots I've realized, having played it more now.
Especially from the back tees, right? Yeah.
And the greens are like deceptively big. Because it's you don't really think about it, and then you leave there going like, man, I had a lot of 50-footers today. Like, you know,
I always play too much
like
break there too.
So I grew up. You know, we talked a little bit earlier. I worked there in high school. My senior year of high school, I was a cart boy, and worked for Brett. And I can't remember the other guy's name, but
Rhett.
No, it wasn't.
I don't know if Rat was around that early, but yeah,
way before. I mean, they're still in trailers.
Kyle's like 58, so
Young looking.
I feel. But the thing that got me with it is seeing all the houses grow up.
Yeah.
And it makes the course look a little smaller now with the houses on it.
It changes it immensely, right?
You know, you're talking about the course fit in your eye. For whatever reason, 15, the widest fairway on that golf course. I'm always on that hill on the right above the bunker. Or that poor guy's backyard. But
First name basis.
Right.
Hey, Rich.
it makes a good hot dog. Great hot dog.
I mean, now you can barely hit it off the golf course without ending up at a pool. There's so many pools out there. It's
100%.
unbelievable. So.
Yeah. I mean,
incredible.
Since I've lived here, the amount of development that's gone on.
And little public service announcement, it's not okay for homeowners to drain their pools onto our golf course. Just wanted to throw that out there. Little PSA.
No.
oh man,
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
didn't know that was a thing.
Straight up.
Just throwing it out there.
Sorry about that. I didn't know. I thought you guys needed water.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it can do
Chlorine.
some damage. Yeah. So
I'm sorry. I didn't know that. I thought we were in a drought.
I will tell you.
Turns out Kyle
You know,
drains his pool on your golf course.
I started out my
It's
career. I started out my career at a golf course that had homes on it, and there's always a unique set of challenges that come along with that. And then I went for about 10 years without that at Minor Park and Swope, and now I'm back. And man, oh man, did the challenges come rushing back quickly. So. And you can probably figure out what some of them are. Restroom breaks on the golf course by our male patrons. Yeah, right. You know, things like that. So golf carts coming onto the golf course in the middle of the night. We've lost about 10 to 15 flag sticks over the last month, just driving over the greens and flag sticks, just stuff like that. So probably kids being kids, but it's a problem.
There? Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I'm surprised, but at the same time, I just didn't.
You don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
I lived in Myrtle Beach, right on a golf course, an apartment complex. It was surrounded. I mean, it was everywhere in Myrtle Beach. But the Arrowhead place that we played a lot, they would have a guy come out 6:30 pulling flag sticks.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah, for sure. Something we've done at some of the other properties. We're currently discussing it here, to be honest with you. But, think about your superintendent. I mean, as hard as they work and they're out there, it's barely daylight, and they go out there and they start off their morning by checking that stuff out. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's just so frustrating.
It's just an annoyance.
So, it's an annoyance, exactly.
It adds
so
up. They're not a huge cost per flag stick.
Yeah, about $100, but it just,
That's how much they are these days?
Yeah, pretty close to it. Yeah.
It's changed since I was doing it.
Yeah. So
it's actually a lot Oh,
JT, everything in golf costs money, right?
Yeah,
so,
no doubt.
It's only $100.
Yeah. One of my favorite conversations with family and friends when they start talking about what things cost. I love to play that game. Hey, you see that new ball machine over there? What do you think that cost? They never have any idea. So.
And you're buying 18 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, probably more than that now. Speaking of that, hey, do you need a flag stick? I got one.
You got one in the back of your truck? Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, Kyle. Appreciate you sitting in.
Doing what I can.
Drinking beers, making jokes.
Having a good time.
Don't know what we do without you.
This far in the episode, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page. We'll see you next time.